Hey everybody, this is Trey Simmons, and tonight I'm just going to be walking you guys through my MVC framework assignment, talking about what it took to get done, and then talking a little bit about my experiences this month. Basically, it's the same thing as before, just a list of data taken from a table. We'll get individual stats about that, and I've also added a little bit of CRUD functionality as well. So if we look at the database, you can see it's just a table of information about exercises. All the stats are referenced by primary or foreign keys, and that's pretty much that in a nutshell. If we come over here, we can access a stat page, which gives us specific information about the exercise we chose. We can also delete or go back to the list. If we take a look at adding them, we can add, let's say we want to do quadriceps that day, so we're going to add hack squats. All of these are required forms because in the database they're non-null values. So we have to fill them in. The HTML will stop you if you don't. And those are the stats for a hack squat. So when all this is processed, when the add exercise button is clicked, the program should add it to the database and then stick it in this list right here. So let's try it. The form is blank. And down here, hack squats have been added to quadriceps. We can click on it, see all that information we just entered, and then either head back to the list or delete it. If we go back over to the database, you can also see that it worked, because if we look in the database, there is no hack squat. When we refresh, there's magically a hack squat. If we delete this exercise, we just click delete. We're taken back to the home screen, and then if we scroll down, there is no hack squat. If we look in the database and refresh, hack squats is down at the bottom, but now it's gone. Let's go ahead. We've seen the database, we've seen the site. Let's take a look at the code. It has two different controllers, an exercises PHP and an items PHP that will just control the functionality. Exercises handles making this list, constructing the list, and adding views or adding exercises to this list. Items PHP will deal with populating this items sheet right here, and then also deleting the exercise that's been shown from the database. Let me take you guys through the configuration files real quick, because it was a little unusual. I didn't do much. I changed the base URL to reference the root document. That way my CSS could be in a stationary place, and since all of our headers and stuff, our views are referencing this main index page, then that enables me just to have my CSS folder on the document root and still have a whole URL when I reference that CSS. In the database config file, I just added my database information up here at the top, and then added this DB array element for port, which is not automatically in the database element, but I wanted to make sure it grabbed my database correctly. And in the roots, I just changed the default controller to deal with the list view automatically, and so whenever we load index.php, it will actually load up that list. So those were my config files. If we want to, we can take a quick look through the header, or through the model. We get exercises to make that list. It just grabs the exercise name, ID, and muscle information to sort by, and to allow for that selection functionality. We also can get by ID, which grabs all of that information that's stored about that record, and then uses one of my favorite parts about CodeIgniter, which is automatic MySQL escaping. If you use a variable like we did here with this question mark, we can write out our SQL statement and come down here in this query, and when we query, we can pass in our statement and also a variable array, which will take in any arrays and then plug them into that question mark. So the ID element here is being plugged in for that question mark when the query is run, and the result is returned in an array that we'll use to populate this information over here. All of the MySQL escaping and everything is taken care of automatically, so we don't really have to worry about any negative code making it through into our database. I do that a couple times, especially down here in exercise add to list, or add exercise to list, which is the functionality that's called when we add to the database. And basically all I do there is in my query, I don't know what I'm going to have for all of these yet, because those are my drop-down value, or drop-down and input values. And so all of those will be added in the array after that variable has been decided based on input. And the way I do that is just to say, hey, since I do have a primary or a foreign key on that attribute, it's not going to recognize the actual string value. So I check the string value against all the possibilities from that drop-down menu. And when it finds one that it likes, it uses a switch statement to sub that string value out for its foreign key integer value. And that's how it actually adds stuff into the database. The last one I want to talk about is delete exercises. And that's called only in the item controller. And that only takes one ID, one parameter, takes that ID, deletes it from the database, and that's all it does. So all of our functionality is controlled for populating the list and adding to in the exercises controller. Everything else is done in the items controller and is referenced in the URL that way. If you take a look back up here, you can see that the items controller ID function and the first parameter, the first exercise, is being accessed. And then if we go back to the list, you can see it's just the default index.php. So that's the website. I definitely like just a little bit about PHP and CodeIgniter. I definitely like CodeIgniter a lot more than I like doing just straight PHP. It seems to be a little bit more simple, and I do like the fact that it seems to be a little bit more OOP based. Once I got the hang of the MVC format, which was a struggle for me because I didn't really understand how to make a break from that ActionScript type thinking where each view is its own object and everything like that. So it took a little while to get used to the view system with CodeIgniter, and with MVC in general. But once I did that, I felt like my familiarity with OOP enabled me to pick it up a lot quicker and do a lot more with it. And it actually makes it a little bit more enjoyable to program with for me. Server-side scripting as a whole, I don't hate it, don't especially love it, but I do see the need for it, and I am looking forward to using it in conjunction with other things like little games that I've done and just my own apps around my own sites. But that is pretty much it. We've covered the website, we've covered the database, we've covered a little bit of the setup that went into it and the coding behind it, and we've talked a little bit about my experience in the class. So I hope you guys all did well. Good luck to you, and I hope you have a great rest of the month.